Hello and welcome to Season 8, Episode 2 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be discussing Ubuntu Phone, and we'll also have some command line love and go over your feedback. I'm Alan, and joining me this week is, giggling in the background, Laura. Hello, Laura.
Hiya.
And Mark.
Hello.
Hello. How are you both?
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, pretty good.
Super. So, Mark, tell me what you've been up to.
Ooh, well, it's been a while since we spoke about what I've been up to.
Summarise everything you've done for the last 4 months.
Yeah. I suppose the biggest thing I did was I went to FOSDEM.
Yes,
that's not what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, well, I suppose it depends on your perspective, really. Well, yeah, FOSDEM, the Free and Open Source Developers European Meeting in Brussels, which is basically where all of the open source geeks in Europe invade a university for the weekend and talk and drink and eat and so on. And it was great fun.
Cool.
Did you go to many talks?
Yeah. The first day I mostly saw talks on the legal track, and the second day I spent most of my day in the PHP room.
Cool.
Because I've just got a new job where I'm doing PHP again.
Oh, that would be the other piece of news.
That would be
new job.
Other big thing that I've been doing. Is
so when you said the biggest thing, I thought that was what you were going to say.
I've only been at the new job a week, so.
Right.
Yes.
Is your new job podcast recording?
No, it's PHP developing.
Good. Right.
No, it's
awesome.
Strictly amateur podcast recording, you might have noticed.
I thought you were going to say strictly amateur PHP. I thought, that sounds about right.
Yes.
Cool.
Sorry, Mark.
Yes. But yeah, you were at FOSDEM too, weren't you, Alan?
Yes, I was. Yes, I also went to FOSDEM for the first time in about 6 years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I didn't stay in one room much. I moved around all over the place. They have an awesome FOSDEM app
it's really
allows
good.
you to keep track of which talks you want to go to and reminds you of which ones are coming up, and you can tag your favourites and all that kind of stuff. Really, really good way to manage your time while you're at.
Wow. That just goes to show how long it is since I've been to FOSDEM, because I don't think we even had smartphones then.
Oh, blimey, yeah. So how about you, Laura? What have you been up to?
I went to the Ubuntu Insiders event.
Ooh, more about that later.
Well, more about that later. I went to the Tech City event for an International Women's Day last Friday, and there were lots of simple, sort of cool tech-related projects like Articulate for finding women speakers for conferences. There was one called Realify, I think it was, where you can find out what a company's really like, before you apply for a job there.
Ooh, is this where people anonymously talk about it so that people know? Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, and I think companies can sign up to be listed, their jobs to be listed on it or something like that. All sorts of things. And I played Code Combat.
That's a great game.
Yes, I don't know if it was one of you that mentioned it to me.
I've never heard of this.
It's an online web-based game, and it's for teaching programming. And you can do it in a variety of languages, but the default is Python. And I've never done any Python at all, and I went through all the levels doing Python.
Yeah, basically,
I was rather impressed.
You're like a sort of warrior, and you have to fight off fantasy creatures, but rather than doing it by pointing and clicking, you do it by typing the commands
up front and then running it.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
it's a bit like.
My kids have been doing something similar to that. They've been going to, I think it's code.org or something like that, where you drag and drop, a bit like Scratch. You drag and drop blocks of code in order to play a game. Basically, there's like the Angry Birds style characters, and I guess it's like the kids' version of Code Combat, where you complete a game by programming, basically.
Yeah, well, this is aimed at pupils, I think, but it is coding in the textual sense. But it's all alongside, it's in a panel at the side, and it guides you through it. And if you've not done this sort of, like you say, you've not done for loops before, it'll talk you through that the first time, and then after that, leave you to it. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. So we're back and ready for
chat.
Yes, more chat.
Cake.
And cake. Let's get on with it.
So, the big Ubuntu news since we've been off the air was that...
There was no Ubuntu news since we've been off the air.
Okay, let's talk about something else then.
Sorry, Mark, go on.
Was that you can now buy an Ubuntu phone.
Ooh.
So this is the BQ phone from Spain, running an actual Ubuntu operating system on an actual phone. And I believe that Laura owns one.
I do.
So yeah, tell us about it.
So I went up to the Ubuntu Insiders event that I mentioned earlier because of doing the podcast. And there are lots of people from the Ubuntu community and some from the BQ hardware community there. And yeah, we got the phone to try out and play around with. And yeah, it's cool. Oh, my headphones have just fallen off.
So you went to London, and I mean, obviously I was there as well, so I kind of know some of this. But you know, what was it billed to you as?
It was. Well, the really cool thing that I liked about it was that it was a really open event. I mean, it was clearly a marketing event, in that, and when you were there, it was all very shiny and things, but done in a friendly way. It was very casual. But it was all very open. So the idea was that anything that was said, you were perfectly welcome to quote it or talk about it. We got the phones and a gift gaff sim and some credit, so you could play around with the phone as much as you like. And then after that, ideally, you'll go away and report bugs or give feedback or write about it, tweet about it. Talk about it on a podcast, but there's no kind of compulsion to be nice about it if you didn't like it or didn't like something about it. I mean, by choosing people from the community, you're going to get some people who are predisposed to be positive or want to be positive about it. But having said that, it is an early release, and like Jane Silber was talking at the front, and she was sort of saying, you know, we want feedback that is going to be improved. So they need the feedback to do that. So I've sent a lot of bugs to Popey.
Yes. So one of the apps that ships on there is a messaging app, an SMS text messaging app, right. And I think that's probably the most used app you've been using.
Yeah, pretty much.
By sending me texts
every time something
doesn't work.
So
no matter what time of day.
So Laura, since you got it, have you now been using this as your primary phone, or do you just have it to play with every now and then and, you know, report some more bugs?
So the first few days I was carrying it around alongside my Android phone. Yeah. Because I've got so much stuff on my Android phone, I just want to have that anyway. But what I found was that I was using them both equally, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I do most of the time is things like Twitter, Facebook, browsing, maps, that kind of thing. And you can do all those things on the Ubuntu phone already.
Yeah.
Some of the apps, like the Twitter and Facebook app, are a little bit limited or a little bit buggy in places, but it was fine enough to use. So I was using it pretty much as my other phone. What I did notice was when I first got it, the battery life was brilliant, and then it went downhill, and I think that's probably the point at which I stopped carrying it around so much.
So are you not really using it at the moment? You've gone back to your Android?
So I hadn't been using it so much the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, something like that. That and carrying two phones around is a bit of a pain.
Yes.
But yeah, I was actually really surprised at how comfortably I got on with it from the start, which is good. Yeah,
the battery bug has been plaguing us for a couple of weeks now, and I think we've got it nailed, and you should get an update probably by the end of the week, which should fix it. I think it was something like location services. If you use location services, it carries on running in the background and eats your battery without you knowing, and so your battery just drops, very, very quickly, quicker than normal. But if you never use location services, you wouldn't notice that, which is why it only affected some people who use maps and stuff, but people who don't, it didn't. But we're getting loads of bug reports from you and a lot of other people, because there's now phones out there that people who don't work for Canonical and obviously haven't seen this every day, and people who are going out and using it like a normal phone, which is exactly what we needed.
Though I was very impressed that, I think, was it one of the product managers has been using it as his primary phone for about 2 years or a year.
Oh, Rick Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah, VP of Engineering.
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
He's been using it for about 18 months, I think.
And he wrote apps to service the need that he had. So in his town or his city, there's a lot of publicly accessible data for things like buses and bicycles, that you can borrow, and so he wrote apps that make it easier for him to get around on the bus in the city where he lives.
Oh,
so
wow.
And it was very easy for him to upload those to the store and make it available. Chances are he's probably the only person on the planet right now who uses that app, but it's in the store if anyone else wants to.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I actually bumped into one of the app developers at Oxford Geek Night a couple of weeks ago. The guy who develops the music app.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
What, Andrew?
That's his name, Andrew.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, he was
Awesome.
telling me about how he gets on developing it.
I used that for the first time a couple of nights ago when I was trying it out and listening to one of our podcasts.
I use it to listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
We don't have an audiobook reader, and I was chatting to Andrew the other day saying, you know what we should do? We should just fork the music app and make an audiobook reader and just rename where it says artist to author and where it says album to book title. And then basically we've got an audiobook reader. Job done. It's a little bit more work than that, but yeah.
So one of the things that I was looking forward to seeing from having seen glimpses of Poppy's phone with the builds on it at recent podcasts was the swipe interaction, because this is quite different from, say, Android. So basically, when you're on the phone, you swipe from the left and you get the launcher down the side like you'd recognise from the desktop. Mm-hmm. If you swipe from the right from the edge, it kind of stacks up all the open apps windows at the moment. A bit like when you press the the kind of Alt-Tab button on an Android phone. God, that's such a mixture.
Task switcher? I don't know what that button is. Menu button? I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. Wow, that's about 3 OSs in one sentence. So you get that. But if you put your finger in the middle of the screen and swipe left, it swipes you to the next card or window thing.
Right.
We call them scopes. But
but I'm going to explain scopes in a minute. Because they're
good.
It's a bit weird.
Is.
Yeah, I know. And then, but if you swipe slowly, I think, from the right, it kind of stacks them statically on screen so you can switch between. And so there's all these different things, and swiping from the top gets your taskbar down like on Android, and swipe from the bottom on certain pages means that you get a list of other things. And
did you find this was all a bit like you just had to start waving your finger around and try and work out what everything did, or was there stuff to guide you through and tell you, oh, if you move your thumb this much, then it'll just do this, and then you can move it further? Is it fairly intuitive from a sort of user experience perspective how this all works, or do you just have to accidentally find it out?
It's not bad. There was a card in the box that explained what each swipe direction was. I can't remember, but was there an actual interactive thing on screen, Poppy?
Yeah. When you first... so there's both. You get a card. There's a PDF manual as well. I don't know if the retail devices are going to have a card in them. I think there was a card in yours, but there's a PDF online. But yeah, there's a welcome wizard.
Yes.
Which goes through the swipe interactions to tell you, swipe here, swipe there. But also, actually, before you even... I don't know if you remember, there was a game that they showed on the screen at the Insiders event that they said, when you come to buy a phone, before you actually get to the buy page, it makes you play a little game.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
And the idea is to introduce you to the swipe gestures so that it's not a complete surprise when you buy the phone and you're not thrown and you're not, oh, how do I switch applications? How do I open the launcher? That kind of stuff. And that was the idea. I mean, it's got a skip button. You don't have to play the game. But the whole point of it is, don't tell us we don't tell you how to operate the phone, because we've given you like 3 different options, to show you how to use the phone.
So the on-screen interactive introduction thing was the thing I think that I'd seen first, and that pretty much explained it, and that was fine. I think there was either a slight bug, or it feels a little bit too close to be able to swipe, because if you swipe quickly from the right, it flies to the last opened app and sort of alt tabs between them, whereas if you do it slowly, it stacks them so that you can touch any one of the last opened apps.
Right.
But what I found, and it might be better now, I don't know, but what I found was that the slow thing didn't always work, and it got quite frustrating at times, and it wasn't easy to tell whether it was just that it was not responding the way I expected it to do, or whether I just hadn't quite got the knack. But mostly
there is a bit of a
fine.
knack to, if you flick really quickly from the right, it's like the fast alt tab on the desktop where it only flicks between the last 2 applications, whereas if you pull in a long way, it reveals all of them, and there is a bit of a knack to it. But
I think it is better now, actually, but it's hard to know. I might just have the knack now. But yeah, so there's that. So, and then the thing that everybody kept talking about was scopes, which I didn't kind of get. I sort of got a bit more during the evening, and then we hassled Poppy about it at dinner. And basically, visually, they're a bit like the cards on Google. So you can swipe backwards and forwards between them. But conceptually, from my point of view anyway, it's a bit like, say there's a cinema scope, where I think the idea is, you might want to watch The Imitation Game, and it will pull in the data from all the different places that could be from, and displays it. So you don't have to go into the View Cinema app and the Odeon Cinema app and your local picture house app. It does that for you and kind of brings them all in as a sort of it's goal-based experience as opposed to app-based. To some extent, some of them work better than others. So like when we were going out that evening for food, we were looking for a local Chinese restaurant, and we found that the scope displayed things by source, so all the Yell.co.uk restaurants were listed separately from all the next suppliers.
So was this the Chinese restaurant scope?
It was the food scope or nearby scope, maybe.
And when I was speaking to Andrew, he showed me sort of a few of the scopes. One thing that struck me as a bit odd was that there's it has the Telegram messenger on by default, and there's a Telegram scope, when it seems to me there should be a messaging scope which has your Telegram messages and your SMS messages.
Yes,
there should be.
That would be good.
I think at some point we did have something like that, a messaging... actually, there is one. There
might be one, it's just not default.
Yeah, there is one. There is a messaging scope, but I don't know if it shows Telegram as well as others. So yeah, there does need to be some thought made into, which ones integrate with others. And I think the whole scopes thing is being refined based on, feedback both from the insiders like yourself, but also from showing off the phone at MWC and watching the way people use it and the feedback we get from people actually just using it. I think that's one of the... I've said this before. I think that's one of the interesting things about this is it's changing over time. It's not like an Apple launch where here's the phone and that's what you get. And we've been developing, they've been developing it behind closed doors for a long time. And then suddenly, ta-da, there it is. And these are all the things you can do with it. And it's a finished product.
Yeah.
Ours is still really actively under development.
I've just found another bug.
Yay.
I'll text it you. But yeah, so that's really cool. I think some of the complication is that there's this kind of trade-off between the developer experience and the end user experience. And I don't know anything about the developer experience other than that seems to have been a lot of work put into it, because obviously having a developer ecosystem is really important for this kind of thing. But the whole scopes thing, I think, was kind of there partly to make it easy to port apps across or something. But what confused me was the idea that you have these high-level scopes that I was just explaining, but then you sort of seem to have a scope per app as well, which sort of defeated the object, it felt.
Right. And I can see that. If you've got a Telegram app, why do you need a Telegram app and a Telegram scope? Why not just have an app or just have a scope? I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how can you get one of these phones then? If you went to the Insiders event.
Yeah, you have to be invited to London, 30 people at a time. No, they're now being sold by BQ on their website as flash sales that last a day, and they set aside a certain number, and then by the time they sell out, the first one sold out within minutes. And we crashed the site because I really don't think BQ had any expectations on what the demand would be. I think they just thought, well, we'll have a flash sale and it'll last all day, and we'll get a few orders throughout the day, and then everyone hit the site dead on like 8 o'clock or whenever it was in the morning. Bam, site goes down. So they ran another one later in the day, if I remember rightly, for the first flash sale.
Yeah.
Because they realised that people were disappointed with the first one, and then they ran another one. I think they've run 3 so far, and the others have been much more stable, and people have been able to buy devices all through the day.
And have they shipped any phones yet?
No, they're being shipped later this month. We're finalising the image that will go to the factory, because they're being made in China, and obviously there's been a couple of weeks of Chinese New Year when the factory's shut.
Oh, yes.
It's like completely shut.
Yes. I tried to order a takeaway during Chinese New Year.
It's exactly like that. Trying to order a phone is exactly like trying to have a Chinese takeaway. Everyone's on holiday, and I'm not even kidding. They were. So I think
the whole of China shuts down.
It does, yeah. And so once they've spun the factories back up and we give them a final image, they'll put it on the phones and ship them out. Should be later this month.
Yeah.
Well,
so we'll see more about that, I'm sure.
And then tell us about it.
I have.
Yeah.
Not you. I'm talking to the listeners.
I know.
Are you going to buy one? Have you bought one?
I have. The thing is, I just bought a new phone, so I can't really justify buying one just because I want to play with it.
Oh, you've got 1+1, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And you've noticed that someone's done a port of Ubuntu to the 1+1.
Someone has done an Ubuntu port to it. So once that gets a bit better hardware support, I will probably look at using that. Also, once they get it multi-booting.
Awesome.
So I don't have to throw away Android just yet.
Okay, so that's everything about the Ubuntu phone for now.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll talk more about this in a later episode.
Absolutely.
And now it's time for some command line love. So this one just seems like so obvious that why we're talking about it, but I guess people don't know about it.
Yeah, that is kind of the point of this section of the show. Yeah.
It is, yeah. So it's speedtest-CLI, which is a command line interface for testing internet bandwidth using speedtest.net. I mean, I say it obvious. I've never used it or anything, but I don't use many of these anyway.
Have you used speedtest.net, the website?
I have, yes. And that's why I sort of,
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is, it's a command line tool, so you don't need to open a chunky browser, which is good if you want to test the connection on a server, for example.
Something headless.
Or, a Raspberry Pi that doesn't have a GUI on it or something like that. You can
something
just test
that doesn't
your
have
speed
Flash.
connection. Yes, that's the other key thing that's interesting about this, is because speed test requires you to have Flash, and I went through a period of time of having no Flash installed because all browsers are rubbish and Flash is terrible. And during that period, there was a time when my internet connection was a bit ropey, and I wanted to do a speed test, and I mentioned it on IRC that speed test requires Flash, blah blah blah. And someone said, why don't you use the command line version? And I was like, what? I've never heard of this. And it
sounds a great idea.
Yeah, it's great.
There's
a whole, I think it's written in Python, and you can you can download the whole thing from GitHub and then use
Python.
What's it called?
Easy install.
setup.py or whatever. But that's all complicated. So they give you a 2-line version, which is just wget everything in one file, and then chmodit plus x, and then you just run it. Yeah. And when you run it, it just goes and gets a file and sends a file and tells you what the result is. It's brilliant.
There's also
so it's not in the repository then?
No, I don't think it is.
Okay.
There's also a site called speedof.me, which is an HTML5 speed tester, and it gives you a nice graph as you go as well, and doesn't need Flash.
Huh, nice.
But that's not command line.
You heard
love,
it here.
So
that's GUI love.
Yeah, that's GUI love, or web love, something like that. Anyway, and
that's the end of the command line love.
And now it's time for your feedback. But of course, it's the first show, so we don't have any feedback yet. Of course, well, second show. So you may have sent feedback in the past week, but we haven't got it yet. This is all too complicated.
That's how timey-wimey.
Yeah, the mail was delayed or something. So we'll read it out next time. But we do have some things to fill this segment with. First of all, it's the podcast's 7th birthday on Wednesday.
7 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
I know.
Yeah.
So, if you have any birthday messages for the show,
send them in.
So where do you send it? So we now have a new website and new contact details, which are slightly less convoluted than the old ones.
Slightly less, but longer.
Yes, easier to say. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So the new website is ubuntupodcast.org.
That's it. No dashes, no UK, nothing.
So much easier to
say.
say.
And the new email address, what's that?
It's show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Great. And what are we on Twitter?
Ubuntu
Ubuntu Podcast.
Yay.
Brilliant.
We stole that from someone else.
Yes. IRC.
With their consent.
Well, we didn't hack it or anything. We asked them. They did tell us the password.
They did. IRC is #Ubuntu-podcast. Why has that got a dash in it?
Sorry. There's not much I can do about that.
Okay.
Right.
We'll also have a Facebook page, but at the moment, just use the old one.
Yeah.
So
yes,
the
quick and easy way to get in contact with us is to just go to the website, ubuntupodcast.org, and everything's listed there, all the contact details and how to get in touch. Send us your feedback or suggestions or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, as well as it being the podcast's 7th birthday on Wednesday, which by the time we release this will have gone. But anyway.
Yes.
We've got this new website without a theme, really. So please don't shout at us for it looking a bit WordPressy. But if you are a funky web designer, feel free to be artistic and send us your ideas.
Yes,
or a whole theme.
Our last 2 themes did come from the community.
It did.
And they were very good.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I think that's one of the nice things is, the last time we needed a theme, we didn't know we needed a theme until someone pointed out our website was terrible and we needed a theme. This time, we've learned our lesson.
We know it's terrible.
Yeah, we know we need a theme. So, if someone out there wants to develop a theme, then get in contact with us or just, make one and send it to us. I'm sure it'll be fine. That's how it works, isn't it?
Just like that.
Yeah.
But ideally, following the Ubuntu palette guidelines.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So
we're also really looking for suggestions for people to interview as well, people we could have as guests on the show. And we've changed the way we record the show now, so we can be a bit more flexible with how we interview people. Previously, we would generally get people on the show on the night that we're recording the podcast, but now we can kind of record them offline and play them in. Which should make things a little bit easier, a little bit more flexible to get people, in different time zones or people who, maybe we bump into at conferences or something. We can record interviews. So if you have any suggestions, do get in contact with us and let us know who you'd like to hear from, or any particular subjects or projects you want to hear from. or if you have a project and you want us to talk to you about, or you want to promote your project,
don't be shy.
Again, get in touch. We had loads of interviews over the last 2 or 3 seasons. Like every other episode or so had an interview with someone. So we'd like to continue that because people seem to like us having interviews and talking to other people.
And we like talking to people.
Yes,
absolutely.
But also, if you're at an event and you meet somebody and you've got your phone on you with a recording app, you could do an interview and either make it up to 15 minutes long or edit it down to 15 minutes afterwards, because it'd be really cool to get interviews from the community as well.
Yeah, and if you don't have like 15 minutes worth of content to talk to someone about, don't feel you have to pad it out. If it's a short one, we could take a couple of short
interviews
5 minutes. 5-minute interviews and stick them back to back. They're just as valuable.
Yeah, so like the last season we've had all sorts of things. So we've had kind of the more traditional, in our sense, of open source projects that we've talked about. We've talked to people who work at Canonical or on the Ubuntu project or on other projects, but we've also done slightly more sort of offbeat ones, sort of like the dinosaurs and the Raspberry Pi hardware hacking. Yeah, oh yes. So pretty much anything really. I guess the brief is that it's technology, ideally open source related or open culture related.
We're not fussy, just send us stuff, all right?
Yeah, we just need content.
Awesome. Is that everything for the feedback?
I believe so.
Okay. So that's it for episode 2. We'll be back next week when we'll have more news, comment and discussion, maybe interviews, maybe rants, maybe some feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get in touch. ubuntupodcast.org.
Oh, that's so easy to say.
It is.
It's easy to listen to
what
as
time
well.
will we be back? Daylight savings and all that.
8:30 in the evening.
Oh no, it doesn't matter because we're not doing it live.
UK time.